doing business in India is going to become pretty easy and very convenient. So why not become a part of this journey? So I think that played a huge role. The timing of it, the very fact that India was changing, the landscape was changing.
Welcome to the Startup Operator Podcast. I'm Roshan Cariappa. It's hard enough running one business. Now imagine running three. That's what Bizongo is. They offer products, services, and they have a marketplace for SMBs. On this episode, I spoke to Aniket, who is the co-founder and CEO of Bizongo, about how his team manages these three seemingly different businesses so well and how they're revolutionizing the packaging industry with technology. This was a fascinating conversation with a young entrepreneur who's causing a real impact. I'm sure you'll find it valuable, so do stick around. Hey, Aniket, welcome to the Startup Operator Podcast. Thank you so much for making the time.
Yeah, thanks, Roshan. It's a pleasure to be here today. I think brilliant to be interacting with you, and hope I can share some useful stories today.
Wonderful. So, Bizongo is a very interesting business, right? As we were discussing, you run a lot of nuances and complexities associated with the business, and you've done a fabulous job over the last 6 years. Would love to talk about, the founding journey itself. Some founders basically solve a problem that they have personally experienced. Some others find exciting problems outside of their domain to solve. In your case, I think it's a mix of both. You are a chemical engineer and you also wanted to start a B2B marketplace, right? To help people procure the right kind of materials and so on.
Right.
So what drove you to start Bizongo?
See, actually, to be very honest with you, Roshan, in the early days, right, I think we had our mantra pretty clear and simple that it has to be team first, then problem later. So we formed the founding team first. So it was in the very initial days, it was me and Sachin, and then Ankit came along later as well. And me and Sachin know each other for a very long period of time, over 11, 12 years. And, we've been together in college. So the reason for us starting up was pretty simple. We thought that, hey, the B2C e-commerce domain is really getting crowded with Flipkart and Amazon doing a stellar job. There is really the click of a button, you can have a product at your doorstep. But are there enough problems getting solved, enough quality problems getting solved on the B2B side? And that's when we came across or encountered platforms such as Trade India, India Mart, which were more lead generation platforms than really an interactive, engaging sort of a transactional platform. Right. So that is when, we had that thought that, hey, why can't we start off as probably India's Alibaba? Because there is a huge lacuna out there in terms of having a really large B2B centric player in India. So that's where I think the passion really came from, Roshan. But to be very honest with you, it was team first, then idea later. And even within the idea, we identified the B2B ecosystem to be really having a huge gap.
Right. So was Bizongo your first idea, or you had other ideas that you kind of overruled?
Yeah, there were other ideas we overruled, and thanks for asking that, because we seldom get such questions now, because it's been a long time since we started up. But yeah, I mean, in terms of our initial ideas, we did gather at our neighborhood Starbucks and talked about several more tech-centric ideas, I would say. So I think that's where our domain came in play, because both me and Sachin are chemical engineers from IIT Bombay, and we then understood that, hey, if we are starting off a very deep tech sort of a business, which is so initially we had decided to start a pos device which would make the number of bills in the system very redundant and give customer centric insights. But then we realized that it is much more of a deep tech problem, and we are better suited to probably go in a direction where there are operational problems to be solved, and that's where our domain came into play.
Right. So were there other principles that you applied in zeroing on an idea that you want to spend the next 10, 20 years of your life trying to solve? I mean, like, did you have things like, okay, domain is one of those things, tech enabled is another, right? Did you think, for example, that the market had to be sufficiently large or had to start in India and be relevant abroad, something of that sort? I mean, did you have any of these principles?
Yeah, absolutely, Roshan. See, at the very starting of the onset of our journey back in late 2014, I think if you remember, in by the mid 2014, our Prime Minister Modi had come in power. The BJP had come in power, and we had rhetorics like "Make in India" slash "Made in India," GST. These sort of words were being coined and used pretty frequently in public. So we were very enamored with that, and we thought that, hey, doing business in India is going to become pretty easy and very convenient. So why not become a part of this journey? So I think that played a huge role. The timing of it, the very fact that India was changing, the landscape was changing, and the other fact was that we knew that half of India's GDP, which is close to $3 trillion now, is actually comprised of B2B trade, and that in itself is highly disorganized. So there
Exactly.
has to be at least someone trying to organize that or playing a real hefty part in that, since the number is huge. So you're absolutely right. We thought that let's be a part of an ecosystem which is really large and can be solved using a tech enabled mindset rather. And that's why we started our journey here.
Right. And then, building conviction in an idea is not an overnight process. Obviously, it builds up slowly. But can you recount, one or two moments in your journey over the last 6 years when you realize that, okay, you know what, we have something. Now it's time for us to double down and really go all guns ablaze.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Roshan. So, what I understood at the very onset was that, it was me, Sachin, Ankit, and a few of our initial joiners. We essentially went on the ground, talked to several small, medium enterprises in Mumbai's Crawford market, in Santa Cruz, in Malad, several smaller markets out there in the city of Bombay, because that's where we were based out of and we are still based out of. And there, we got an insight. We used to ask a lot of questions that, hey, you are using the Alibaba app today, or you're using the India Mart app today. Is it helping you? Are you getting genuine business, genuine leads? And the response was very lukewarm. So, when we told them that you are actually going to be onboarded on a website or a platform which is going to give you genuine sales, and those sales are going to be executed through an operational machinery, they were super happy.
Hmm.
And this ranged from really small MRO oriented suppliers or manufacturers to packaging manufacturers to probably apparel manufacturers or fabric manufacturers, and the horizon it was horizontally well spread across. And that is why, Roshan, even today you'll see that you have platforms like Moglix in the MRO space, your platforms like Zetwork in the manufacturing space, who are really changing the paradigm of B2B e-commerce in India. And I'm super lucky and feel super proud that Bizongo is also part of the same ecosystem.
Right. I think the enabling infrastructure that you're building is like the second evolution, I would say, from the marketplaces, right? So you're absolutely right. I mean, we had the India Marts of the world, but I think we're seeing the 2.0 or perhaps the 3.0 of that journey, right? And we'll get to the packaging nuances and, some of the supply chain complexities, but you also had to pivot, right? I mean, you pivoted from polymers to packaging, and that was not an easy decision for you. If I understand correctly, you lost a significant percentage of your revenue when you decided to do that, right? So
Yeah.
what were the circumstances leading to it, and how did you decide that, what, let's stop this and go in this other direction?
Yeah, so that's again a wonderful question, Roshan. So see, at the onset of the packaging business, we sort of went back to the drawing board, understood how the polymer and chemical ecosystem where we were actually present in, how it was working, and then think about how to delve into the packaging ecosystem better. Now, the reason for the transition was that when we looked at the chemicals and polymer segments, we noticed that the real value add we could provide
Hmm.
was not in supply chain but financing.
Hmm.
So it's going to be really a rat race that we would be running,
Hmm.
because we would be probably getting more and more financing lines onboarded, giving loans or underwriting loans for SMEs, and essentially running a very sort of a financing business at the end of the day. So that we thought would be a rat race to run into, and not a very differentiated or unique business model. And that is when we pivoted to a packaging centric play early on.
Right. And that has paid off handsomely after that for you. Packaging is again one of those things that is so ubiquitous that we almost think that it's so simple, right? But there's a heck of a lot of complexity under the hood. And can you give us a peek into what it takes to make sure that these products are packaged beautifully, and 2 clicks we order and this beautifully packaged product arrives at our doorstep? What happens at the background?
Yeah, so in terms of what happens at the background, really is a very well designed supply chain which our clients essentially need, be it in FMCG, consumer durables, e-commerce, pharma, healthcare. In all of the industries that we operate, Roshan, we've typically seen the customers say that I need my packaging on time,
Hmm.
right? And on time in full, which we call OTIF, or on time in full as an acronym. So what we do essentially, we have devised our proprietary auto replenishment algorithm, wherein Roshan, we taken the inventory data from the customer's end, specifically of their unbranded products, and when that falls below a particular threshold, an order is triggered automatically, rather than customer placing an order. So it's a consumption-led automated replenishment, which helps the customer tremendously. And there we have seen umpteen number of benefits that the platform can provide.
This episode is brought to you by Mulya. You want to move fast? Sure. But without breaking things? Now that's a hard ask. The thing is, once you have some base of users and customers, you just cannot afford to risk quality. So how do the likes of Bread, Swiggy and CureFit, some of India's fastest growing startups, ship at lightning pace and delight their users and customers? Simple, they're working with Mulya as a strategic quality partner. Mulya is India's most talented and passionate community of testers. They've helped prevent thousands of bugs and regression issues. So, as a CTO or a product owner, if you want to reduce tech debt, especially while you scale, do check out Mulya.com. I've interviewed Mulya's founder and CEO Pradeep on the podcast earlier, and we spoke about how startups can improve quality while scaling and things to that effect. You should definitely check it out. I'll link to it in the description below. Now back to your regular programming. Right. So managing the supply chain is not a trivial thing, right? I mean, obviously you have to manage inventory and demand and, have to bring everything together, right? And technology is just one part of it, but then having the market know-how and having the domain expertise and so on is a whole other challenge, right? How have you built that to serve all of these different customers across these different industries?
So from a domain expertise point of view, really, Roshan, what we did again in the initial days itself, we started off our own design and development lab. We tried to build a lot of design expertise in-house by providing the right sort of product, well designed in terms of functionality as well as in terms of aesthetics to our clients, and they being happy with it at the end of the day. And also a lot of development work in terms of material change, form change, right, shape change, which is extremely intricate and important as well to our customers. So that we saw as a domain expertise play really well, and the customer thinking of it as an extra value addition.
Right. So, you speak of something called a connected platform, right? And I think all of us kind of recognize the term anecdotally, but I'm sure there is a lot of technological connotations that are behind it, right? So, what are some nuances of building this platform? From design to procurement, what are some of the nuts and bolts of this platform?
So in terms of building a connected platform, Roshan, really, the intricacy involved is that you need to think about the customer life cycle completely, end to end, right? So in our case, when we thought about the customer life cycle, we realized that there are three core value propositions that we can provide to the customer. One is along digital vendor management, because as of today, whenever you think about unbranded goods, so actually just to inform you, Roshan, we have moved from packaging to textiles and apparels as well.
Mhm.
And in the textiles and apparel space, we are actually getting around 50% of our current revenues.
Wow.
So in the unbranded space where we right now operate, digital vendor management is a very difficult thing to achieve, because there are small vendors, their timeliness is generally poor, the OTIF levels are poor. So managing these vendors on a single platform becomes crucial. So I would say digital vendor management is something that the platform does very seamlessly, because we are able to onboard these small and medium manufacturers.
Hmm.
The platform does supply chain automation very seamlessly on the lines of the automated replenishment that I was just mentioning some time back. And the platform also is designed in an apt fashion to do supply chain financing. So, in an unbranded goods territory as well, financing is a very healthy tool because that saves companies cash flow,
Hmm.
and they're able to make sure that the suppliers are paid early. The suppliers give them prioritized service, but they themselves can pay late. So these are the three solutions that we offer, and we are seeing a very healthy adoption of all of them.
Right. So, just before we began, we were talking about how you're actually running three different businesses in one, right? You're doing the platform, the products, multiple products, in fact, and then services to support it. Can you describe your business, as a whole? What is Bizongo about?
Sure. So as a whole, Bizongo is essentially a B2B platform, or India's largest B2B platform for unbranded goods. So, what the commonality between the products that we choose, Roshan, be it textiles, apparel, lifestyle, fashion, be it packaging, be it agri products and commodities that we have also started doing at a very nascent level, is that they're all unbranded products. And their supply chain is that of made to order, customized sort of a supply chain. And for them, the problem statement is that the supply chain intricacies look the same. And that is why the platform tendency of doing digital vendor management, financing, and supply chain automation remains the same. So that's why we call ourselves India's largest platform for unbranded goods.
Right. How easy or difficult is it to manage and bring all of these different elements together? Because to me, I mean, it sounds like a super complex problem, right? And so, how have you structured your teams? What are the metrics that they're kind of chasing in order for, to enable all of the platform products and services to come together symbiotically?
Excellent. I think, Roshan, I'll be able to answer that because we spent every day looking at different metrics that the teams look at, and then conjoint fashion they build the final growth metrics of the org. Overall, I think we have a sales and business team which is getting customers onboarded and getting revenue for the company, and their north star metric is definitely looking at the average revenue per user or per customer. And well and above that, we also have the customer success team, which is involved in making sure that the events or the engagement or the activities that the customer is registering on the Procure Live platform, which is our flagship product, is high. So there is an entrenchment or an engagement with the platform. That is what the customer success team does. Apart from that, we also have a finance team which is involved day and night in making sure that our finance operations run well, and also our supply chain financing lines are set up for usage by our customers and our suppliers. And last but not the least, we also have a technology and product team who are building the Procure Life platform, the Partner Hub platform, and bringing everything to fruition. And the North Star metric for them is definitely building products and making sure they're being adopted by our consumers.
Right. You work with a lot of small businesses, right? And these folks are, of course, different in their own way. What have you learned from, working with these small businesses? What have they taught you about business?
They are the people who have taught us the maximum, for sure. The reason being, see, what I've realized is SMEs in India are hungry for more business, and hungry for more business in a way where they get a guarantee that they'll get business tomorrow, day after tomorrow as well. So in our case, whenever we have worked with SMEs on the supply side specifically, we've gone ahead and done and made partnerships happen with them, where we've told them that, hey, I have a lot of business in my kitty. I'm going to guarantee X amount of volume to you for the next few months or for the next few quarters, because that is where the SME really struggles. He or she is not able to maintain a steady throughput of business for a sustainable period of time, which is causing their capacity utilization to drop. And that is where Bizongo comes in through these different varied partnerships.
Right. You recently raised Series C funding and you raised debt also, right? And it's quite interesting. I thought, how do you balance, this hyper growth, the aspiration for hyper growth? You want to become the Alibaba of India, right? And also, a focus on profitability and so on, which is also something that is important to you.
Yeah, so see, I'll be very honest with you, and I think this is the first time I'm talking to anyone outside the company on this specific subject. But to be very honest with you, Roshan, we are very close to profitability.
Hmm.
Right, that is a disclaimer that I wanted to put out. And the reason behind that is that we look at growth, but we look at sustainable growth. So till date, I don't remember doing a single transaction within Bizongo where the CM2 or the contribution margin that we generate from that transaction is negative. We have never done that.
Hmm.
We have always looked at positive CM2 customers. The lifetime value that we have for our customers, or the LTV, is extremely high. The CAC is very, very low. We don't need to spend the money in marketing, or we don't need to spend a lot of money in acquiring customers. Generally a feet on street model, and once the customer is within the Bizongo ecosystem, it's a complete land and expand sort of a model, where we are able to get 100 rupees of revenue from them, and then 100 rupees becomes 100,000 rupees very soon. So that is why the CAC is low, the LTV is high, the CM2 is obviously very positive, and that is the reason why we are being able to attain profitability by the close of this year.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense, right? I think because you're offering a full stack solution to these folks, right? I mean, you're solving a wide variety of problems for them, and I'm sure your LTV must be like super high comparatively, right?
Yeah.
So over the last 6 years, you would have seen different challenges and opportunities, and you would have run through the journey in a particular way, right? At this point of time, as a founder, what are some high level challenges that you are solving for?
As a founder at this scale or at this juncture, generally, Roshan, what happens is then generally team alignment is a very difficult thing to drive.
Hmm.
Right, what I've seen is that as the number of people in the org goes up by a notch, then making everyone follow a particular track and going in a particular direction to make sure that growth is attained is a very arduous task. So I think that is where I think we have hired a really good top leadership as well within the company. We have really robust VPs who have who form the next layer after the founders, and they're able to drive things really well within the company as well.
Right. And for founders who are listening to this podcast, right, what is it that changes when you think you hit scale? Like, for example, let's say 10 million plus or something of that sort. What is it that breaks and what is it that changes? What are things that you have to be prepared for to solve?
Yeah, I feel, Roshan, that seldom you'll find cases where the team is ready to take up ownership on his or her own, and typically things break because the latent need of taking ownership is not there in the mid layer or the lowest common denominator within the company. But the founder is driving something else, and the company is on another different track altogether. So
Hmm.
that is where the things break. And constant communication, very transparent communication, strong leadership, getting more senior people also involved, steadily building more accountable sets of hierarchies within the company. I think these are things that need to be, the people side needs to be looked at in a totally different lens.
Right. Yeah. I think as the ecosystem has matured, I think we're running businesses with a lot of metrics, playbooks, and milestones and benchmarks and all of those things. I think which is amazing because all of us have a north star to aspire to and move towards. I think there's some precedence, but culture becomes super important as well, right? I
Yeah.
mean, how you drive last mile execution totally depends on culture as you scale, right? So, okay, with that in mind, what are some of the things upcoming at Bizongo? I hear that you're going to expand to Southeast Asia as well. Are there any other product lines that you will be coming out with? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Roshan, from our perspective, see, we also have a SaaS product called Artwork Flow, wherein there is an artwork collaboration and artwork management that happens on the software. Is developed completely in house and does a super job. We have close to 25 paying customers for the same already, and we also have British as well as American customers for our SaaS product already, because we just started it around 5 to 6 months back. And on the expansion front, I think we released a press release just yesterday. It talks about Mr. Manish Chokshi, who is the current vice chairman of Asian Paints, having joined Bizongo's advisory board, and he is going to work hand in hand with three of us as founders on Bizongo's expansion and GTM strategy for Southeast Asia as well as Middle East. So a lot of action happening, a lot on our plates. So we hope we can do justice to it.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's been a very inspiring journey. And, to round things off, we're operating in exceptional times, right? Of course, COVID changed plenty of things for all of us, personally and professionally. What are some things that you have learned from this experience, personally and professionally?
From COVID, Roshan, I think it's been heartbreaking to say the least, to see the sufferings that our employees, we call them cultivators, who have suffered because of the loss of a very close relative, loss of a loved one, a parent, a sibling. It's been heartbreaking to watch that. But having said that, we've taken a number of steps to make sure that Bizongo goes out and serves people in the time of need, and people which we call our own. So we have a fund which has been seeded by the founders, which is available for usage in any case when an employee falls sick. We organize vaccination drives across all cities. We have oxygen concentrators for our employees. We have rejuvenation leaves that we have given 2 days a month for employees to feel more relaxed about, and a number of other initiatives that we have taken. So I think this has been a learning, that the learning has been very interesting, because Roshan, I feel that personal life and professional life can't be decoupled that easily during
Yeah,
COVID.
true.
That's my biggest learning. You have to treat all of your employees as your close brother and sisters, and make sure that they receive adequate comfort, adequate care at a time when the entire world is struggling.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's a great note to end the podcast on, Aniket. Thank you so much for making the time again. This was a fascinating conversation. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Absolutely, my pleasure, Roshan, and thank you for taking the time to talk to me as well. I think it was a really pleasurable conversation.
Thank you so much for listening. If you liked this episode, then don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite platform and share this episode with all of your fellow startup operators. Also, follow the Startup Operator on LinkedIn and Twitter for more updates. Stay safe, take care, and see you soon on a brand new episode of the Startup Operator.